mean, I guess it's, something is better than nothing, but we know from 2016 that their platform was one of the biggest spreaders of misinformation and even Russian propaganda and influence in our election. And they really haven't done much in the interim to take care of that problem, which is a really serious threat to our elections. I don't think it will be very effective at all because people will already have their impressions. If there are ads that they viewed earlier in the cycle, those will still stick in their minds. If there are ads that are already in the system that continue to air, they'll potentially influence folks. I don't think prohibition on new ads in the last week makes any difference at all. They did talk about some other measures post-election though that might be helpful. So doing things like policing posts where candidates claim victory before all the voting is counted. So that's, one of the major issues we're likely to face after this election, which is that we have so much mail-in voting happening nationwide, and mail-in voting takes a longer time to count. So, on election night, we'll have precinct numbers in some states, we'll have, some early numbers, but we won't have the full accounting for some period of time, weeks, months, maybe even. And so, that's the part we worry about. And what they said is that they were going to try to at least post some warnings and, do a little bit of policing of those claims of victory that are too soon. There's not a perfect measure of what's effective, especially when we're talking about changing people's minds. We ourselves don't consciously know why we changed our minds a lot of times. So there's really not a way for, outside people to find that out. What we can do is things like, scholars will poll about the misinformation and see how many people believe the things that are untrue, but even then they're not going to hit all of the items. And even then we don't know necessarily that belief led to a particular vote or changed a vote or motivated someone to turn out. So it is very difficult to trace exactly what the influence is. We do know that people saw more misinformation in 2016 on Facebook than they saw proper information in the weeks leading up to the election. Exactly what that meant, we don't know. There's not a way to perfectly track it. Well, I mean, I guess just in general, we don't have a proper way in our system of ensuring that these social media companies that have such a big presence in our communal life, we don't have a way of encouraging them or requiring them to uphold democracy. And that's a problem. We need to have a way, obviously Zuckerberg's testified before Congress a bunch of times, and he seems pretty dismissive, and he hasn't done a whole lot to address these issues. And neither, the other social media platforms have done a little bit here and there too, but there hasn't been a substantial just overhaul of the way they approach election information. And I think partially it's because that's just really hard. It would take a lot of effort, and you get accused of bias if you call people out. So it's a huge undertaking, but democracy is a huge undertaking, and they have the potential to really undermine our elections. Social media in general is a place where a lot of misinformation is spread. Some of that is completely fabricated disinformation, really. So completely fabricated purposefully to try to mislead people. And that's really dangerous, especially around things like how you vote, when you vote. So that kind of disinformation is really dangerous. But even, regular campaign ads by candidates can be a problem for misinforming people because we don't have a rule that requires that they be honest. And so you get misleading campaign ads from campaigns, but also from, third parties like interest groups or PACs that do their own advertising. And the problem is that people end up believing things that aren't true, and that may guide their vote in a way that is not really in line with their values. Yeah, this whole idea of like the last week before the election somehow being a key time makes zero sense, especially in this era of mail-in voting, when most Americans probably at this point will have voted or at least, started to fill out their ballot by the time that last week comes around. And then the other thing is, if you look at the fine print, it's not even that they won't air any political ads, it's just no new ones. And so if they've already been airing an ad, or well, not airing, running an ad, they can run that same ad still under this policy in that last week. So it's not that even that there will no longer be political ads on Facebook in that last week. So it's really the most minimal effort. The beauty from the advertiser's standpoint of advertising on social media is that it can be really finely tuned to specific audiences. And Facebook has tons of information about its users. They know what ads you look at, they know which friends you have, they know what you post. And so they can gear it very specifically to a certain target audience. And so, it really depends on who they're marketing towards. Obviously, generally campaigns want to go for potential swing voters. And the other strategy, of course, is to motivate folks who might not vote who are already on your side. So, lots of people are on Facebook. It skews a little older today, but older people are more likely to vote too. So, we certainly did see some impact in 2016, and I'm expecting us to see some this time as well, because people believe the misinformation they see on social media, because it comes from their friends too, right? Like your friend forwards, posts something, or your relative, or Facebook friend at least, and it feels more credible because of that, even though oftentimes it's really not.